Dr. Wortley, stage is yours. Please share your presentation.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be talking to you today from the UK. My name is David Wortley. I'm a Vice President of the International Society of Digital Medicine, but I also am the CEO and founder of another company called 360 in 360 Immersive Experiences. Pardon me. So I'll go straight into my presentation on the topic of Luddites, Etidals and Ludditidals in the Industrial Revolution. And this really is my views on the impact of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the phenomena of Luddites, or people who are opposed to or worried about the impact of technology on jobs, livelihoods, humanity, the economy, environment and society, and the mirror image of Luddites, which I've called Etidals, a mirror image of Luddite. And the Etidals are people who demand better, faster, and more accessible technologies to make existing jobs less demanding, to create new jobs, boost the economy, improve the quality of life for everyone. And Ludditidals are people who sit in both camps. They are not only worried about the impact of technology on the future, but they are also very passionate and embrace the use of technology. But just to explain the origins of Luddites, because this originates from the UK, the term Luddite really arises from the first industrial revolution towards the end of the 18th century, when the invention and the use of power like water power and steam power led to development of machines and mechanisation of many things that were done by craft workshops previously. And amongst the trades in craft workshops, which normally took place in people's homes, were weavers making garments. You can see an example of in the centre picture of somebody at a weaving loom. Well, the Luddite term originates from a man called Ned Ludd, who was a weaver who was affected by the First Industrial Revolution. And he led a rebellion against the technology because all of a sudden it replaced the human skills and livelihood that he'd acquired over a lifetime. And it got so serious that the government imposed legislation, and they also involved the military, and people were even executed for destroying the new fangled weaving looms. Or they were either put in prison if they were found guilty, or some people were even deported to foreign lands and put in penal colonies. So it was a very serious point in history, but the point about it is that these people rebelled against technologies which took their livelihood away. So to look at the four industrial revolutions and their respective timelines, the first industrial revolution was based around steam power and mechanisation, things like weaving looms, and that began towards the end of the 18th century. And after it had settled down, it led to a wonderful golden period. We call it the Victorian Age in England: innovation, enterprise, increase in wealth. And then it led into the second industrial revolution, which is based around the discovery of electricity and other fossil fuels like oil and gas. And from this arose mass production, assembly lines, Model T Ford, and a whole range of other things. The wars, the 1914-18 war, the 1939 to 45 wars saw a period of conflict. In between, there was a golden period called the Roaring Twenties, the Depression of the 30s. And it wasn't until the end of the Second World War in 1945 that we saw the introduction of the atomic bomb and the nuclear age. And in a way, that was a bit of a wake-up call for the world. So after the end of the Second World War, we saw a beginning of a period of prosperity, which led to the third industrial revolution, which was called the digital revolution. It was based around computers, electronic and automation. And today we are virtually entering, although I would argue it's just a continuum of the third industrial revolution, we're entering the fourth industrial revolution, which is based around more advanced technologies like the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. So I argue that the third and fourth industrial revolution are really all about the same thing. So in the period of my lifetime, we've seen in the 1970s mainframe computers leading to mini computers used in business, leading to desktop computers which became more consumer items, personal digital assistants. In the beginning of the 20th century, 21st century rather, we saw Web 2.0 and the ability for people to be able to create their own content and publish it. The emergence of social media, giants like Facebook and Google and so on. Then we've seen smartphones, which are ubiquitous pretty much. And today we are entering the area of artificial intelligence. And throughout this period, even right from the very beginning, intelligence and human knowledge have begun to increasingly be embedded within technologies. So if we look at the amount of digital data stored globally, which has a big impact on the nature of people's jobs and the cognitive demands that are placed on people, we can see that from the area of the mainframe computers, when globally there was probably less than 1 terabyte of data stored in the 1970s, to the current period where we have literally millions of terabytes stored globally. The logarithmic scale gives an indication of how this has changed over my lifetime. And in fact, today my home computer and even my smartphone stores more digital data than existed globally in the 1970s. And alongside this rise of the increasing amount of data storage, we've seen a phenomenon of a guy called the prosumer, which is the increasing empowerment of citizens with technology. So as devices have got more sophisticated, they become more personalised, democratised in the sense they're available to everyone, and consumerised, so that we can all gain access to these kinds of technologies and do things that would have been unimaginable in my childhood. So with any industrial revolution, there are going to be winners and losers. And what I wanted to look at briefly to give you some ideas and thoughts about who is going to be successful in the fourth industrial revolution, who's going to make money, who's going to see their jobs threatened. And so I've put together a portfolio of jobs, all of which I would describe as knowledge professionals, because they can't do their job without some basic knowledge and skills that have been acquired over a period of time. So if you look at the salary comparisons between 1955 and 2021, and these figures are taken from the Office of National Statistics in the UK, it gives you an idea of how people have fared relatively during this period of the third and fourth industrial revolution. And the heartening thing to me is the fact that on the left-hand side you see all jobs. And if you take every single job, generally speaking, general public, the working population are actually better off now than they were in 1955. But not everyone has benefited the same amount. And you can see some professions, like doctors, for example, dentists to a certain extent, and university professors, actually relatively find themselves worse off now than they were in 1955. But the other factor to take into account, which really exacerbates this even more, is it's not just about salary, it's about the demands of the job, the amount of training that you need, and the cognitive demands in order to do your job. And this chart shows, in order of the people who have benefited most from the third and fourth industrial revolution, down to the ones who benefited least. It shows the jobs and professions that have done better or worse than other professions. And you can see all jobs is actually at the top of the list. So we've done not too badly as a society in making sure wealth is shared. Interestingly, train drivers as a profession, railway engine drivers, have had the biggest proportionate increase in their salaries, and yet their job essentially today with driverless trains is virtually redundant. And the level of cognitive and physical demand on a train driver today is insignificant compared to what it was in 1955. And yet, they've done very well. But at the bottom of the table, you can see all those people like dentists and professors and doctors are better paid than the general population. They haven't done as well proportionately, and yet they've had to invest more and more time in training to develop their skills. And one of the reasons behind that is because of the amount of data, the amount of knowledge that they have to absorb and tackle in their professions. So I've written about this in a book. It's something that occurred to me. It's not something that occurred to me yesterday. I wrote a book over 10 years ago about mankind's changing relationship with technologies. And it just reflects on our changing relationship with technology. And I saw on LinkedIn the other day a comment speculating as to when it would be, when would the time arrive when technology became godlike. Well, my argument has been is that it's too late. Technology is already godlike. If you look at the attributes that we ascribe in any religion to their God, you will see that it is all based on an all-seeing, all-powerful, all-knowing personality that exists in the ether, that knows the secrets of our heart, watches over us, knows everything that he does. Well, we already have that with technology. We have with the internet and with smartphones, with the Internet of Things, we already have created that. And the question that I ask is, are we independent masters of the technologies that we've created, or are we increasingly dependent on technologies and in danger of becoming a slave to the technology that we use? So I just want to thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Dr. Wortley, thank you very much for the nice presentation. It's a very hot topic these days, and we, especially with the AI tools like ChatGPT, these kind of questions are asked raisingly. Is there anyone who would like to ask any questions to Dr. Wortley? We will be more than happy to take them.
Am I allowed to say something?
Yes, please.
Of course, please.
Sir, it was really nice hearing your presentation, Dr. David sir. I am working in a university, and your presentation was very interesting. First thing, I just want to understand that like what is your suggestion, or what is your take on how should we people upskill ourselves, because nowadays a lot of competition everywhere, and we have to, during COVID also we have been upskilling us. So what do you think is one of the important skill in general that all the job professions should be upskilling, or and any specific to our profession, as in like I'm teaching, I'm professor in the university, so what special, one specific that I should work on? So please answer.
Yes, well, I'm sorry to say that I think that professors and teachers are likely to be the most under pressure with these developments in technology, particularly with ChatGPT. Because there's two reasons for that. One is that the people that you will be teaching will have access to the same knowledge that you have. So they're in a good position to challenge you and question why you are in a position of teaching them. The second thing is that with this increasing volume of knowledge information, how are you going to keep up with technology? How are you going? So I think what I would say is, and it's very difficult to be specific about this, but the jobs that are going to be most valuable are the ones which are not likely to be threatened by technology. And those, for me, are the human attributes like empathy, by relationships with other human beings, understanding, developing relationships, and those are the kind of skills, and good citizenship skills, I would describe them as being the most important. But when it comes to choosing a profession for the future, Quite some years ago, I was in Nepal for an international conference on education strategy, and a person who was a visiting professor, a keynote speaker, very clearly advised the Nepalese government to focus on apprenticeships. Because apprenticeships for trades like electricians, plumbers, decorators, carpenters, these are people who are already doing better financially than the general population. It's because they have skills which will not be replaced by machines. And so it's very difficult to say develop a skill. Clearly, you've got to understand the knowledge, and you've got to understand ChatGPT and GPT and other technologies that will affect your career. So develop those human skills and focus on that, and understand how these technologies are going to affect you, and try and make the most of it.
Sir, one more thing I just want to mention, because our generation is like coming up and I have my kids with me. Earlier, we used to pick the storybooks and we used to read those storybooks to the kids. And nowadays, they are using phone so much. And they are saying that I will be playing video games. And also, how do you, what do you say? Is it right happening, or is it something which should not be there? Because video games playing also, affects their mind.
Well, I don't think you get anything to do about children having access to technology, because if their friends and their peers have got access to technology, they will not appreciate it. What I would say is that what I think does work with parents is to make sure that your children have time outside without technology. They have time to play, to have time to enjoy the countryside and things that make you human. So you have to balance that and really make sure that they understand that it is not all about technology. With the human race is under serious threat, and it's the future generations which will hopefully protect the world in the future.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wortley. Is there any question for Dr. Wortley? Dr. Wortley, I have a question. So when I was doing my PhD advisors were always saying, you guys are reading less than us. You are not reading enough. You are just using internet to keep track of the articles, etc. Now we are saying the same thing to our students, and our students are not reading anything at all. So, and with this ChatGPT thing, it's an amazingly useful tool, I could say. I am using it for a lot of things. They will not read, probably. They will not read anything. Probably they will adapt this, and we will adapt this, but most of the professors in my university doesn't even know what does ChatGPT is. So how are we going to adapt to this thing? Because it is not like anything else. ChatGPT is an entirely new thing, this AI tools. What do you think about it?
Well, yes. The professors who don't know what ChatGPT is will be the ones who will lose their jobs first, in my opinion. I use ChatGPT, and I'm aware of the good things, but it's also, although it's increasingly sophisticated, it's not the answer to everything. I did as an experiment, wrote an academic article entirely using ChatGPT. And I can do things not just with ChatGPT, but other technologies that use artificial intelligence to manipulate images and videos that your professors would be absolutely blown away by. So it's really in their interest to look at these things and understand them, because how can they, I think a savvy student who's well versed with ChatGPT and understands about research and how to get citations and all that sort of thing, used intelligently, they can write really sophisticated research reports just based on the data that they get from ChatGPT. And I don't think there's really much you can do about it. Now, in another area, I'm working with a company who are using artificial humans and artificial humans linked to artificial intelligence. You can imagine that you are a patient, you've got a medical condition, and you're worried about the drugs you're taking, what you should do. Instead of trying to phone your GP up and get an appointment, which will be in the UK very difficult, you simply talk to an artificial human, and you will really have difficulty in detecting whether that is a real person or not. And you can talk to them in your own language and your own voice, and they will answer to you in your own language and voice, and they will give medically validated data. And you can understand what a game changer that is potentially for many different types of organisation. It isn't just medical professions, it's in every single profession. And to be honest with you, I recently did a presentation on digital media and literacy. I think we're approaching a period in history where people won't need to read or write. And a lot of people won't, because they will, as long as they understand the language. If you go to McDonald's, you will see the kiosks there with the pictures of your food and what you want to eat there, and they will talk to you in your own language. And we're rapidly approaching the point where you will be able to have a pair of earbuds like this, and you will be able to talk to me in Turkish, and I will be able to understand you in English, and I'll be able to talk to you in English, and you will be able to hear me giving my answers in Turkish.